Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to do today in making homemade buttermilk cinnamon rolls. Now the deal is that conjures up this wonderful picture of in the kitchen and the rolls are coming right out of the oven. Is there anything that matches the aroma of freshly baked rolls? And today with this, I'm just so glad to show you a little shortcut. Technology has made a difference. It's not semi-homemade. They are all deliciously prepared from scratch. I've had this thing for 10 years. A chef helped me pick it out. It's been carted everywhere. It's a little bruised and beat up, but you know what? Still the interior works just great. But what I do is I put my ingredients in here and I set it for the dough cycle, which is about two and a half hours, and I come back and my dough is ready for me. I don't have to do anything. There's no mess on my counter. Nothing is done. It takes me 5 to 7 minutes to put my ingredients in here. All that I got to do then is play with the dough. And that's the fun part anyhow. So this morning when I got up, I went ahead and did a little dough cycle. So in here right now, see, we have the dough. It hasn't rised for the second time, but we're going to work with it today so I can show you more importantly how to shape the cinnamon rolls. So we'll pull that out, the little container there. Now actually the things that go into this recipe are very basic. You need flour. The recipe's in the book. It's about 3 cups of flour. And then I put in a little baking powder. Now the recipe doesn't call for it, but my mom says when in doubt, throw some in. So I always put in a little bit of baking powder, and I have it here mixed with some salt and then also some baking soda, because whenever you use buttermilk, you have to use baking soda to activate that. And anytime you have buttermilk in a recipe, you're going to have a lot more flavor and a lot more moistness than if you don't. And sugar. Anytime it says granulated sugar, I use brown sugar. I'm a little bit funny about that. I love the flavor of brown sugar. And of course we know brown sugar is unrefined. Bread flour. Yep, it's a good thing. Use it. It works very well in the bread machine. I do see a difference. People always ask me that. I think it's 10 to 15 cents more when you go to the grocery store. Sometimes you got to look for it. Don't pick up the wrong thing. Self-rising flour, whatever, like I have done on many occasions when haste makes waste. But bread flour is a good thing if you're going to use your bread machine. So do select the bread flour. Will it ruin the recipe if you don't? No. So if we had all of these things lined up, I would put the dry ingredients in this little container first. And I stir them up with my hands. And I put the dry ingredients. And then once I get the dry ingredients, and this is the instructions it gives you in your bread machine book, then I add things like 1 egg, and I would also add butter. We don't add that other stuff, that big M word. Not in my house. Butter. You want a quality flavor, use butter. Okay, so we put the butter in, and it's just 3 tablespoons is all it takes, so that's not too much to make up about 20 cinnamon rolls. And then after that, I add my buttermilk, and it's like 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. So I put that all in there like that, and then this is the yeast dispenser, and I've already been asked. I like this in the jar. I think it stays fresher. I keep it in my refrigerator. Yes, it's worth it. How many of you have ever torn into a yeast packet? That's like extreme fighting. And for this recipe, I use 2 teaspoons. So I just put it right in there. And this is about 2 minutes has gone by. Put that thing down, and off I am to go feed calves. And in a couple hours, I'm going to have that bread dough ready. It's that simple. Anybody ever thought to do that at home? So anyhow, I've got the bread right here. Okay. It's just great to play with. And you're going to see that it has a nice color. It's a little darker, but remember I used bread flour, and I've also used a brown sugar, so you might find it slightly more tan in color. I think the hardest thing to make in cinnamon rolls is probably rolling them out and learning how to do the shapes. So here's the bread. Now it's traveled in that car and in and out today, but I start with it and I kind of try to pull it out, and if it rises a little bit more, you will find it easier to shape than mine. I should have had about another hour to let it rise, and I'm just putting it on flour so it doesn't stick. All right, and I like to cut it down. Let's work with one section at a time, okay? So can everybody see? We're going to stretch this out. And this is where you can build upper body strength with one of these kind of things, okay? So we're going to roll it out. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to stretch it a little bit. Okay. The typical thing that you would do right now is you would take butter, put it in my hands and put that on there. And you don't want to get too much butter because it can, when you put it in the oven, it can seep out and then burn a little bit on your pan. And then the cinnamon sugar would be on top of that. And all you have to do is roll up at your shortest end, like this, and keep pulling back to keep it tight, because that keeps the coil woven. And now you've got what looks like a little bit of log, and this is what you do. You make your cinnamon rolls, and of course the cinnamon sugar would be on the inside, and you can make them bigger or you can make them smaller. Tuck in those little ends because when they rise they're going to come undone. So pinch them inward, okay? And you can see right there we have about 7. So you can get 14 to 17. Those are a little larger than I normally have. And that's the cinnamon roll. They've been used at celebrations, graduations, holidays.
Down the Road is brought to you in part by Prince Agra, makers of Omnigen AF, advancing animal nutrition for healthy animals, and Woodruff Enterprise of Springfield, Ohio.